Chris Cabba case. I followed it very closely. I remember following the Mark Duggan case. Different circumstances, but again, a police stop. No firearm found on the man who was shot. So there were similarities, and of course lots of fears about what would happen as a result of this in the communities and by the police and by other concerned citizens, because Mark Duggan shooting, that basically led to the 2011 riots, where it caused huge amount of damage and deaths were caused. So understandable concern after this shooting. Lovely picture put out of Chris Cabba. This is a sort of delightful, lovely man who was unarmed and was about to have be a father for the first time, and what a lovely, lovely guy he was. Now, there are legal reasons that make it difficult for us at this precise moment in time. It may change during the show to discuss some things. Because there will, of course, be an inquest into Chris Cabba's death. These things wait until after the court case, and inquest, and that will go to a jury. So we must be very careful not to prejudice anything. However, things we can say, things in this court case, very, very clear. Chris Cabba was not an unarmed man. Chris Cabba was driving a car that was not his. I'm going to go out on the limb and say he hadn't organised the insurance to drive someone else's car. But also he was driving a car which had been linked to 2 gun incidents, one of which was outside a primary school the day before. Police had every good reason to be tailing this car. Every good reason at all. It was at night. We've seen the dash cam footage. We've seen the body cam footage. Huge number of police officers, they stop the car in a side road. They surround the car, order him to get out. I think it was it 16 times? Ordered to get out, did not get out of his car. Instead, ramming the car forward and backwards. Police officers fearing for their lives. One police officer was trying to open the door and apparently had his sleeve caught. This is the point at which the firearms officer, Martin Blake, was decided to open fire, shot one clean shot into the head of Chris Cabba. Now, he says he wasn't trying to kill him. He was trying to save the lives of officers he was working with. We weren't there. We've got the footage. We can see how much police were trying to control the situation. This is someone resisting arrest, posing a threat at night in a car. They didn't know it was Chris Cabba. They didn't know who it was. But it's a car that's been linked to gun crime. How did this case ever come to court?
It shouldn't have. That's pure and simple. The car was being used as a weapon. It was being driven at police officers. And if it wasn't police officers, it could have been pedestrians, anybody out on the street, other motor vehicle users at the time. So I think the police officer had only one course of action. And when you start looking at the footage, which I found really quite interesting, they did also a shot for the court of little dots sort of surrounding a car, so you understand on a grid system where everybody was and how close this was to being a major disaster with running over of officers. But
again, I mean, look, and if you're not watching our YouTube page, you can see the footage right now while we're talking. I mean, you know, if the police start following you and they stop you, if they've got the wrong guy, just some innocent guy just on his way home. He's just, he's going to have a kid soon. He's a lovely, lovely, lovely guy. Oh, he loved his mum and his dad. He was a lovely guy. Why would you not stop the engine, put your hands up and get out of the car? Because I tell you what, that's what I do in that scenario. And I'm wondering, because I put a message, I mean, I've never been shot by the police. Now, OK, I'm not a young black man. I completely accept that I'm a white middle-class woman. I'm unlikely to be followed by the police. In the circumstances that I were, though, I'm pretty darn sure I would not be found in a car that had been linked to gun crime. I'm pretty sure that I would... I mean, 99.99999% sure I would be getting out of the car when ordered to do so with my hands up, because that would be the safest thing for me and everyone to do. What I wouldn't be doing is ramming the police cars. Oh, because how could he possibly know there were police cars? I mean, really, when police shout, "Armed police, get out of the car," I'm thinking that's a bit of a giveaway. It is just extraordinary, this. And yet we've had the family, we've had campaigners saying things like, you know, no justice, no peace. The family members criticising, a cousin in particular reading a statement from the family. This is Shida Queen, along with Kaiser Rose and Temi Mawale. They gave statements yesterday, but she was reading out saying, the outrage, the injustice of the fact that they returned the verdict so quickly. I mean, 3 hours for a verdict tells you that the jury... I know what happened in that jury room. I've been on a jury, OK? What happened in that jury room is they sat down and went, right, let's all have a cup of tea. right, let's have an initial vote, and they all voted not guilty immediately. I'm telling you, that would have been what has happened, OK? We don't know what's happened. We'll never be allowed to know what's happened. They're not allowed to talk about it. We're not allowed to ask them. And then they'd have discussed it and talked about it, had a sandwich, and then they'd returned their verdict. They would have been so clear-cut after a 3-week trial. But this is the thing, why did this man ever come to court? Because we've had the likes of Sadiq Khan posting tweets today saying, oh, you know, just trying to be on both sides but concerns of the black community. Surely one of the reasons why black people in London and around the country have a lot of concerns about the police is simply because you've got politicians like Sadiq Khan and race-baiting campaigners, frankly, stirring this up, turning this into a race crime, a police brutality issue, rather than what it actually was, which was police officer doing what he had to do, doing his job to save lives.
And I think this is what irritates me slightly, is everybody's looking at Chris Cabba and saying there's no justice for him. But what about the police officer who was there carrying out his duty? Armed police do not go out there looking for people to shoot. They take their jobs incredibly seriously, as you would hope they do. What about him and his family and the effect that it's had on them over the last 2.5 years? Nobody has paid the bill for him.
I know, exactly. I mean, Sadiq Khan, I mean, forget what he wrote yesterday, what he wrote after his death. My thoughts are with Chris Cabba's loved ones today. His death has had a huge impact on Londoners, and in particular black Londoners, straight away into dividing people. Anger, pain and fear has been felt across communities, along with the desire for change and justice. Now, when you say change and justice, you're implying there was something wrong there. I mean, you're basically saying there was something wrong there. I mean, and there's no evidence that there was something wrong there. I mean, here's the real giveaway. You know, again, this little George Floyd moment, and like, there are like 4,000 armed police incidents that Met Police are called to every year. That's just the London police. Okay, about 4,000 every year. I think the police fire their arms roughly once or twice a year on average. 0.05% of authorised firearm incidents involve shots being fired. I mean, the idea that we're talking about trigger-happy cops who are just on the streets going, oh, you're black, let me shoot you, is patently absurd and insulting. The Met Police have got a lot of problems, but I mean, you know, and we know that, and we talk openly about that. But the idea that these armed officers are just trigger happy and casually shooting. All the other armed officers all said that in the court that they were about to shoot as well. They completely understood why this officer. But he was charged with murder, not even manslaughter. Like, he went out that night planning to murder this guy who he'd never met and didn't know who was in the car. But also that he was named. Now, a likeness of this man's face is not, that's a crime to actually, you know, to show that in the public. But why did he have to be named? Putting his family at risk.
And that's it. His family are at risk, even if we don't know the photograph of him. Everybody's talking about him. Everybody knows his
criminal
name.
world will know who he is.
Of course. And that's what you have to worry about. What are the repercussions if Chris Cabba's family go for protest, which is what they're suggesting might happen? There could be some civil unrest. What about those police officers who have been involved in this? Will also be known to some people, and they're going to be at risk as well, and their families.
You hold up banners saying "No justice, no peace." As far as I'm concerned, you should be arrested because you are threatening violence,
inciting a riot.
You are absolutely. Well, I mean, if you'd done that post Southport, you'd be in jail.
Yes,
we'll come to that case. I've got rather big differences with my very esteemed and much loved colleague Isabel Oakeshott, but I've got a lot of issues with her, what she had to say on that issue. But we'll come to that. Let's also talk about today 1,100 offenders coming out early from prison. Well, it was 4/10 of their term. A lot of people will say, I mean, they're coming out after halfway through their term anyway, what's the difference? Which is a fair point. I would argue they should serve their full term. I'm old-fashioned like that. But some of these will be violent offenders. They will. I mean, there were some let out last time, by accident, but these ones actually will be violent offenders. And now we've got an announcement, again, interesting timing from the government, because they know how badly this played out last time when people were popping champagne corks outside prisons. But we've got an announcement of basically a review of how we punish people. As Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood launched a review of sentencing designed to deliver, they say, a long-term solution to the prisons crisis. I mean, the long-term solution is to build more prisons, but that costs money and it takes time. Basically, they say the demand for prison places is rising by about 4,500 prisoners each year. We haven't got enough space. We haven't got enough money to build more prisons. So the review is going to be led by the former Tory Justice Secretary David Gauke, who is all but a Liberal Democrat. Who are we kidding? I've got a lot of time for David. He's been on the wrong side of every debate, everything. He's going to look at an overhaul of sentencing laws. Basically, well, we know what they're looking at because we know exactly where Keir Starmer is. We know where all of the Labour front bench are on this, which is that what they call low-level criminals may not be your or my idea if you've been the victim of those criminals, should serve their sentences under house arrest, tagged and the like, be able to carry on working. Because, of course, they're all in full-time work. Of course they are. Rather than going behind bars. You worked in the Home Office, now dealing with the policing side, not the justice side of, obviously, this world. What do you make of this?
I personally find it ridiculous when you're looking at house arrest as being a punishment. Well, OK, you can tag somebody, you can tell them they have to stay in and they're going to be monitored, but you're going to hand over that contract to a private company. They've not got the best reputation when it comes to managing prisoners.
Brilliant.
Yeah, there are a couple of companies that are right up there, overcharging for tagging prisoners that have either died, gone back into prison, they were still charging the government for processing them. And you sort of think, we're really going to hand this over and we trust them. But what are you doing with the criminals? You're letting them sit on their sofas watching daytime television? Are we not looking at drug rehab? Are we not looking at education, training? Nothing.
Because when people say prison doesn't work, I mean, prison does work to the extent that while you are behind bars, you're unable to commit more crimes. I mean, that does work. Prison works as a deterrent for most of us. There are lots of things I would do if I thought I wouldn't end up in prison. Let me tell you. I won't tell you on air because I've done the job, but I'm just saying. Prison does work as a deterrent. I'd be absolutely terrified to go to prison, as would most people. It's one of the things that it does work. But also we do need to punish people. It needs to be punishment. Now, I'm not of the view that a punishment that involves sitting in your cell 23 hours a day and being able to buy a very expensive skunk is a very good way of punishing people. I think that's a daft way of punishing people. Prison is very expensive if you do it right, and some Scandinavian countries do it very right. They've got very low reoffending rates, but also you need to get people early. They say, well, thing is, prison doesn't work because most people who come out of prison reoffend. Most people who go to prison have already got a string of convictions. What a surprise when they come out, they actually commit another one. I mean, surprise. But what you need to be doing, a lot of people who go into prison, they've been in care, they've been failed lots of times, they've been failed by their families, by the system, failed by schools. There's a huge rate of illiteracy among prisoners, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, mental health problems. Well, let's try and deal with some of that behind bars instead of people sitting in their cells, sitting on, on playing computer games and smoking dope. I mean, that would seem to be a better way. But it is expensive. But long term, it wouldn't be expensive because you'd actually be doing people. The argument is that you can't do anything with someone in 3 months. Well, let's put them in for a year then, and let's do something with them. But that is going to involve more prison places and more money. But I think that's money well spent.
Well, so do I. If they're not going to come out and go back into the life of crime, then surely it's got to be an investment. If they come out and they're actually going to turn their lives around, go and be the taxpayers of the future, surely that benefits everybody.
Well, and they're realistically not going to be great taxpayers of the future, but at the very least,
if they're contributing,
not terrorising their local neighbourhoods. And
even if they're volunteering, I don't care as long as they're doing something and not just heading out and going and smashing into someone's house. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, we're going to talk about this, but I want to talk about the case of the that we broke it on the show yesterday, Peter Lynch, hailed as by my colleague Isabel Oakshire as Britain's first political prisoner. A 61-year-old grandfather who was jailed for 3 years for his part in one of the riots post the Southport attacks.